Welcome at the opening event of the India Business Month in 2021. My name is Maarten van der Schaaf. I'm the director of IndiaConnected, and I have the honor to moderate this session. I have the pleasure to welcome Payal Kanwar, with whom we will discuss the future years of India and its economy in a bit. But before we start, I would like to give you a brief background on the India Business Month. This event is organized by Altios International, by maier+Vidorno, and by IndiaConnected. Organizations with respectively French, German, and Dutch roots. Altios is the leading group for internationalization in the world, and it will celebrate its 30th birthday anniversary this year. They have more than 450 employees and 22 offices around the world. maier+Vidorno is a leading German-speaking advisory firm and service provider for India. They have their head office in Cologne, Germany, and they have offices in Delhi, Mumbai, Pune, Bangalore, and Chennai, with over 150 employees. And already 20 years, they're starting their 21st year this year. And then my firm is IndiaConnected. We're the leading advisory firm in the Netherlands and Belgium. So for Dutch-speaking companies who want to enter the Indian market, and we are based in Amsterdam. Together, our companies offer very pragmatic services and solutions for companies that want to enter the Indian market or who want to expand or restructure their businesses with India. We have a fully integrated back office solution for companies planning to export their products or services to India and invoice the same in Indian rupees. We do accounting, compliance, HR, logistics, all out of one hand, and in all these different languages as well. So that's also what brought us together to organize this India Business Month. This is really a pan-European event. For more than a decade, maier+Vidorno has been organizing in Germany the India Day, as a great reputation. But this year, maier+Vidorno and Altios and IndiaConnected joined hands to organize this event. And yes, of course, since everything moved online, we didn't want to ask you to spend a full day online with us. That would be too much. So we decided to spread it out, spread the events and talks out. Bless you, Payal, and to spread it out over a month. Hence the India Business Month. So after the interview with Payal, we'll talk you through the full program of the month. Okay, so. Well, and then two more things before we start, two more practicalities. As you have, you realize you're with almost 300 listeners, so luckily you're all on mute. But that doesn't mean that you have to be silent. If you want to ask a question, please do so. On the right-hand side, there's this panel. And there's a chat box, and please ask questions if you have for us during the conversation. Then, second point, we're recording this webinar, and we'll share it with you afterwards. So if you have to rush out at some point for some urgent matter, you don't need to miss anything, or you can also, of course, share it later with colleagues or friends. All right, Payal, let's start with our topic of today. We're talking about the Indian economy and the upcoming years. And of course, with COVID-19, we had a bizarre start of the 20s. And we all wonder what else the 20s will bring for India. And we're going to discuss this with you. We're very happy that you're here. You're the Director General of the Indo-French Chamber of Commerce and Industry. You were born in India. You grew up in England. studied in France, fell in love maybe with France, the croissants, who knows. And in her earlier career, she worked for a French bank and for the French embassy in Delhi. So thank you so much for being here today with us.
Thank you so much, Maarten. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Great, wonderful. Maybe shortly, can you tell us a little bit of background on what's your day-to-day job at the chamber, and how does the chamber support its members?
Sure. So I've been working at the Indo-French Chamber of Commerce and Industry for about 10 years now. And what I essentially do is I overlook our operations in India. So we have 5 offices in the large cities: Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, Bangalore, and Pune. And we represent a network of close to 700 member companies, which are both French groups, so subsidiaries and companies in France, and also Indian companies with French business interests. So we provide a lot of services to these members. The idea is to help them in navigating India and understanding the market, organizing events. We do about 100 events a year. We also support them in HR, recruitment, and we also heavily engaged in policy advocacy, which is quite important for a country like India, where there's ever-changing regulations, etc. So that's really what we do in a nutshell. And yeah, it's a very exciting, dynamic Chamber of Commerce. We're twice in a year award-winning. So it's exciting, and we're a team of 30 people in India. So that's really the essence of what we do at IFCCI.
Right, right. Thanks for that introduction, so people know what your daily job looks like. Maybe just because you're in Delhi, right? Huh? You're based in Delhi.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I'm based in Delhi, yeah.
So I'm curious, what has been the impact of COVID-19 on the Indian economy? What have been key takeaways? What have you noticed?
Yeah. Okay. So, you know, like you said, it's been quite a 2020 for everyone across the globe, and I think it's the one thing that's brought us all together, because, you know, you tell yourself, I'm sitting in India, but somebody in Brazil is going through the exact same thing. So it's really something which has, again, brought people closer. So COVID-19 majorly impacted the Indian economy across all major sectors and services. What I could say was that the nationwide lockdown, which was put into place at the onset of the pandemic roughly between April and June, is what had the largest impact on the Indian economy. So just to give you some perspective, so firstly, of course, businesses, daily lives came to a complete standstill, except for essential services, which is, again, the case in a lot of countries that enforced a lockdown. But just to give you a reference in an economic perspective, the last quarter of 2019 and 20 was already moving at a slower growth pace of about 3.1% in the last quarter. Now we come into the year 2020, where the pandemic struck at the beginning of the new financial year, because in India it's 1st of April to the 31st of March. So the first quarter results showed a contraction of 24%, which is the largest in history. It's the largest that anyone has seen. Now, quarter 2, I could say, yes, it did better. We were at -7%. And quarter 3 and quarter 4 results are still awaited. So the estimates today are that we are going to end this financial year at about -7.7. Now, I think what that essentially means is that, yes, the pandemic has impacted almost all industries, manufacturing, services, with the exception of agriculture, because there was a good harvest season in India. But I think what's interesting to look at is the sort of indication of revival. If you look at even the difference between quarter 1 and quarter 2, from a -24 to a -7%, that's a strong indicator that India has the capability of bouncing back. And that's really what it goes to show. I think also another reason is that there was no second major COVID wave in India. Of course, we had the lockdown, but there hasn't been like a second peak in rises. I'd also maybe like to add that, you know, economists today are trying to evaluate what the recovery is going to be like. So, you know, we're looking at a lot of different graphs. People are asking, oh, is it going to be V? Is it going to be W? So we have a lot of alphabets. But what it's increasingly looking like is that it's going to be a K. What does a K essentially mean? A K means that there's going to be a split recovery. Some sectors are going to recover much faster. When we talk about tech, we talk about pharma, we talk about digital, but if we still look at the services, industry, aviation, hospitality, it's going to be at a slower pace. So, I mean, that's really what the year is looking like. And of course, you know, we have to move forward with optimism. The budget was released earlier this week, as you know, by the finance minister. It's a very forward-looking budget. It's quite optimistic. A lot of big announcements there, which maybe we can talk about in a while. But yeah, I mean, just to give you that perspective, that's really what impact, you know, COVID-19 had on the economy.
I see. And so of course, you're talking about specifically the impact of the lockdown. Huh? So we're not talking about the
lockdown, yes.
In what sense has that has COVID-19 also been an opportunity for India? In what sense have you seen interesting stories of companies innovating throughout COVID, or can you say something about that?
Yeah, so this is a question I like, because I'm a positive person and we have to look at the opportunities. Of course, it was, you know, a challenging year for everyone, but at the same time, we've seen a lot of innovation. So, okay, if we look at India at large, I think there were certain trends that were already, you know, unfolding over the past couple of years. But I think the one major thing that comes to my mind is the fierce acceleration in India's digitization and the strength digital economy. So, you know, like, for example, you know, you talk about a lockdown, of course, everyone's at home, et cetera, but at the end of the day, life went on. If you look at financial services, you look at education, you look at, you know, you look at other industries, it all went on because of this sort of, you know, digital revolution. Just to give you, sorry.
That means, Payal, sorry to interrupt you, but that means that the digital infrastructure in India, that says a lot about the digital infrastructure if things could go on, because of course we can have great e-commerce businesses and e-services, but if the infrastructure is not running well, it doesn't function. So did this surprise you that the digital infrastructure of India was already so far that that it could handle this?
Yeah, these are things that we already know. Like, for example, I know we have a lot of companies listening in from Europe, but just for them, you know, for example, today in the country, there are about 50 million financial transactions per day. We're talking about 750 million people who have a mobile phone with internet. I mean, that's probably the size of Europe, I think. You know, we have 400 million WhatsApp users. Yes, more. So, I mean, these are like, this is the mammoth of a country. I mean, the opportunity is large. I think what I'd also like to tell you is, because we're talking about 2020, is in a recent report that was released by NASSCOM, which is the National sort of Technology Association, about 1,200 tech startups, tech startups came into the foray last year in 2020, and 12 unicorns. So, I mean, again, the potential is really, really immense. And I think this is something which is only going to develop more. In terms of company innovations, I can give you a few examples from the retail sector, maybe, where, you know, a lot of companies, again, use this time to reflect, to improve their, you know, existing platforms, to engage more with customers, to understand trends. Yeah, so maybe I think digital is one of the biggest ones. The second one, I'm so sorry. The second opportunity I think I would talk about is something that India has been respected and known for a long time, is its vaccine capabilities. Now we're talking about the largest vaccine, you know, drive in the world, but you know, the kind of low-cost innovation that we've seen, it's amazing. And even before COVID, India was contributing to about 50% of the world's vaccines. So I think that's another area which is going to grow.
And also the.
I'm so sorry, I have a bit of a cough today.
Bless you. I hope it's only a cough and nothing more serious.
I should be fine.
And again, there, what surprised me in seeing the numbers of every time, maybe as a European, every time when you look at the numbers in India, they surprise you. But also about the vaccines, indeed. I think the pace at which India is going to vaccinate the population now is also going so extremely fast. Yeah, it says something about the infrastructure in India.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one more thing, you were mentioning a few sectors there. You said something about retail and innovations in retail. Can you be a bit more specific? Is there a specific example of one of these retail chains that has been has a clear innovation there?
Yeah, I mean, for example, at the chamber, we have a retail committee. Okay, so what we do is we've divided our members into groups sector-wise. So retail, of course, had to shut shop overnight. And if you look at the luxury segment, it's even more, it's harder for them because they have huge, real estate costs. They have no customers coming in. So, for example, one of our luxury firms has developed a sort of a call center to be in touch with their customers. Some of them have changed their CRM. So there's a lot of sort of proactive sort of initiatives that have come into place with COVID, where they needed to ensure that sales were going on. So that's really what I was trying to say.
Yeah, I see. Okay, maybe, yeah. Bless you. Yeah, you keep on coughing. I'm glad you spend time with us. I'm glad that you can make the time to with your cough. But let's say, okay, enough about COVID, because I think a lot of people are fed up with it. And let's look at the future. And that's also the title of this event, the Outlook for 2025. And you mentioned already a few sectors, but and some are obvious, of course, in the tech industry and healthcare. But what other promising sectors can you mention for India, and where will growth come from between now and 2025? What do you see happening?
Yes. Okay, so thinking about this question makes me realize that it's a little hard to pinpoint, because India is one of the fastest growing economies in the world. It's a developing country. So I think a lot of sectors are relevant in today's context. However, if we look at the budget that was announced, for example, we see the big push that's been given to infrastructure. Now that's a big move, because if India is improving its capital expenditure and its infrastructure capabilities, it's obviously going to do a lot for the country, but it's also going to improve in getting in new, foreign companies into the country. And under infrastructure, there's obviously the entire section of smart cities. And smart cities is really an area where French companies, but not only French companies, even European companies are heavily involved today. If it's, waste management, are we looking at water distribution, city gas, metro, road, rail? I think that's one huge opportunity. It's already been the case, but it's going to, it's going to definitely, accelerate over the next, couple of years. Green technology, renewable energy as well. That's a big sector. India has big ambitions. We already have some of the largest players in the country today. If you look at EDF or NG, or but even SMEs like Technique Solaire is a smaller company. They're acquiring big projects in India. So I think this space, generally speaking, infrastructure, smart cities, is a big area. We spoke about pharma and biotech, so I'm not going to go back into that. I think India has always been a leader in IT. The IT tech startup space is, again, very important. Just to give you an example, during the COVID year, where a lot of companies and businesses have obviously suffered a lot, IT companies, the leading ones, have announced that they are going to make a single-digit growth this year. So despite of everything, I mean, it's still a very promising sector. Maybe the last one I could mention is FMCG. Given the country's demographics, the rising young population, the purchasing power, FMCG is definitely a space to be in. We have a lot of companies in the space, large and small, but like, just to give you another example, L'Oreal. For L'Oreal, India is I think, if not the most important market in the world, perhaps in the top 3. So FMCG is definitely a big space as well. So I think these are broadly 4 or 5 sectors that I can think of right now.
Yeah, and then the first one that sticks to mind that you were just mentioning is the infrastructure, and that you mentioned infrastructure in a very broad sense. So it's not only the physical infrastructure, but indeed for many cities, and this, under the Smart City program of the current government, there's a push to improve the infrastructure.
There is.
But yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, because sometimes we have a tendency to talk about large companies and large names, but really we have seen some very successful SMEs come into India and really succeed in the space. Like we have one company which is specialized in smart metering, and they've got some great projects, and basically they're involved in energy efficiency. Small size company, maybe a team of 5 people in India, but just understanding that, okay, the market is right, I need to come, there's potential, how do I get there? I need to obviously be advised by the right people. So, I think we'll talk about this in a bit, but, a lot of people, it is a complex country. Yes, I mean, I'm not going to deny it, but it's not impossible. You just have to get, your plan right. You need to know what you're doing. And of course, plan your business smartly. Sorry, I don't know if you got off topic, but
No, not at all. And I like also because a lot of SMEs, a lot of SMEs, for them the feeling is it's hard to deal or to work in a sector that is heavily influenced or by government. But you're saying like smart metering is, of course, also the government is on that as well. So smaller SMEs can also be successful in these markets.
Absolutely.
And then there's another, of course, you mentioned the Smart City program. There's other major programs. There's the Make in India program, the Digital India. There's the Clean India. There's many of these campaigns that have been launched in the past 5 to since 2016, more or less. What else can we expect in the upcoming years from the Indian government of these new pushes? Or can you see in the budget that was released this week, can you see already which trends are there? Where do they want to focus on?
Yeah, I think, it ultimately, all of these programs, at least when we talk about foreign companies coming into India, I think it ultimately comes down to the ease of doing business. How easy is it to do business in India? So, as you know, India has, jumped the ranks, and I think the position is now 69 on the ease of doing business rank. But I think the real question now is, how do they come down to the top? How do they come into the top 25? And that's really where the challenge is. That is really where policy changes are required, where, they need to get rid of, so many compliances, etc. So in the budget, of course, there were a few things that were announced. Now, the first one being the production link incentive scheme, where the government has basically identified 13 sectors, and this is going to be basically focusing on giving local manufacturing a boost. So I think 2 have been approved and the others are in the pipeline. When we look at other reforms coming into play, I know that the government has also launched a national land bank, because again, land acquisition is a big topic in India. It can be cumbersome, it can take time, it can be costly, approvals take a lot of time. So I think that's something that the government wants to focus on. Single window clearance, that's a word that's been around for a long time, but during the budget it was announced again that they're going to be launching a single window clearance on the 1st of April. And I think that will be quite promising, because a lot of the times companies kind of can get a little, they need to understand where they need central level permission, state level permission. So I think a single window clearance mechanism is definitely going to help. And the last one is perhaps going to be to simplify all the compliances and the paperwork. So I don't know if I answered your question, but I think your question is, yeah.
I think you did, because you're basically saying the campaigns that are there, they are there. They're on Make in India, Smart City, Clean India. All this is there. But what is more important is what underlying that is matters for every sector and every business is that
Yeah.
ease of business needs to improve. It has already improved in the last 5-6 years. And the next push for the government should be and is there. You also see this, you talk about this, you hear talk about this. Of course, this doesn't go overnight, but you see improvements there. So yeah, and that's of course the major and how foreign companies can also benefit from this. And then still, I want to go back to one of this Make in India program, and this has also been covered a lot in news media, that India as the new China, the new production hub of the world, heavily promoted, a lot of talk about this. But yeah, I'm curious also, do you see this happening, or is this especially a lot of talk? Do you see, for example, among your members, more and more companies moving their production to India?
See, okay, now if you look at the India-China question, I think, yeah, that's the first thing that came out, after the pandemic, was to, question, and is there an opportunity for India? I think companies today are wary. They are, questioning their investments in China. But at the end of the day, honestly, I think it's pointless to compare. There is no comparison. China, at the end of the day, is the world's largest importer of raw materials, the world's largest producer of finished goods. I think what's important to work on for India is to develop its capabilities and to become a real alternate option, which I think they are on track, and that's the ambition, and that's what the government wants to do. But I think that's really what the focus should be. I'm so sorry. So yeah.
So the focus should be on themselves and not so much on the comparison with China, you're saying?
Yeah, I think it's to improve its ease of doing business and to become, favorable destination as an option.
Yeah. As an alternative option for.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. So sorry to hear you cough. And okay, so that's the first point, and the second point is, do you see companies, French companies, for example, among your members, moving their manufacturing to India?
Well, okay, good question. Now, in terms of companies with existing manufacturing setup, see, firstly, I think what I'd like to tell you is that Make in India is a title. It's a title, it's a name, it's a brand. But it's a reality, and it's a reality since years and decades. Companies are already manufacturing in India. I think the trend that I can see today is, for example, I haven't really talked much about French investments in India, but just to, again, give you some perspective, 38 of the CAC 40 are France's largest publicly listed companies. 38 of those companies are already in India. Companies are already making in India, whether it's, metro, rail, cars, automotive. What we've seen happening, I think maybe in 2020, because I have to make it relevant, is we've seen some interesting joint ventures. We've seen some interesting acquisitions. Schneider Electric, for example, biggest acquisition in history, $2 billion acquisition of L&T's electrical business. I think what we've seen on the ground is expansion of manufacturing bases. So, for example, there's an auto component manufacturer in Pune. They're now launching something in Tamil Nadu, so looking at different geographies. So companies already invested are looking at other geographies to expand their manufacturing base. Some of the large companies are already manufacturing in multiple states as well. Now, that's for France. But I think what I've heard from bigger players, because obviously, we also talk about the Apples of the world and Samsung and consumer electronics, which is massive. I think, yes, we have seen reports of these large companies trying to come in with their supply chain partners. And I think that's also, at least for consumer electronics, it's a big focus for the government. So like I mentioned at the beginning, The chamber does a lot of policy advocacy, and we work with the government to help our companies. So we have been actually in touch with a lot of state governments who want to, again, attract new foreign investors. And it can be a little exciting at times as well, because they're all kind of there's a little good competition going on as well. So we work with all states, but drive is definitely there. Of course, India wants more to come in, and why not? So I think if we link all of these points together, ease of doing business, India's demographics and potential, and if we improve doing business, I think it'll only be good for the country.
Yeah. So the banner of Make in India should actually be much more Make in India.
Much more Make in India, and already Make in India.
Yeah, already Make in India. And interesting, what you're saying is that the big players are pulling their suppliers in. So in the slipstream of the big players, the SMEs are also coming in, manufacturing there.
Absolutely.
I shortly want to mention that the chat is open and questions can be asked. So I'll have a look at it shortly. One more thing before we go there, I would like to ask you, Payal, we're talking a lot now about French or European, but logically French, because that's your members, but European companies coming to India. Do you see also many Indian companies going to France and going to Europe?
Yeah, absolutely. Now the volumes are not the same. So Indian companies have been investing in France over the past couple of years. And I think the last report that was published by Business France, so Business France is the nodal agency for promoting investments into France, was to say that there are now 120 Indian companies spread across France, accounting for about 8,000 jobs. The main sectors are IT, pharma, biotech. There was a large entry of Motherson, which is a big automotive Indian company. And 2019, I think there were about 18 new projects of either investing or reinvesting. So yes, and at the end of the day, I think France is well placed in Europe, in the heart of Europe, gateway to Europe. So that's also how a lot of companies see it and see the potential. But of course, the other way around, there are many more investments in India or French companies. But I think that's also a mission, and that's an objective for France, to attract more foreign investors into the country.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. Okay, let me go to the questions. Someone's getting very enthusiastic because he's asking, when is India open again for business travel?
Question. Well, I mean, technically it's open because we've been having visitors coming down, and as you would know, the huge air show called Aero India, where we have the Rafale on display, and so we have about the largest presence from France. We have about 19 company visitors. So yeah, India is open. I mean, of course, there are precautions to be taken, and you'll have to check visa and travel and what do you call it, quarantine. And I don't think there's quarantine in each case, but yeah, you'll have to check with your local embassy. But business is otherwise open.
So business is open. You're welcome.
You're welcome. Please come, pay us a visit.
Okay, let me go to this question. Someone is asking infrastructure programs. Oh, there we go. So infrastructure programs like the Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor development are announced in several years, but the implementation is slow. Is there any acceleration to be expected?
Well,
that's a tough one, I think, but go ahead.
No, it's a tough one. No, I mean, yes, they have. It's not just the DMIC. There are other projects as well that do take time to get off the ground. I think that there have been consortiums that have been, sort of established. I really don't know what the status is of the project, but, we can find out and get back to you. But I do think, generally speaking, it is a time where it's quite evident that at least infrastructure is going to be a huge area of focus, and things are going to be taking off the ground. So we can only hope that, this is accelerated. But if you need any specific information, please don't hesitate to write to me, and we'll get back to you.
All right. So that's an invitation to the one who asked that question to write us an email, and we get you more specifics. Someone is asking here about IP protection, so intellectual property. What is the business culture, or what are the business ethics related to this subject? Of course, it is possible to arrange contracts, but what about following those by Indian companies related to their mindset? Well, start with that first one. What about IP productions? Of course, many companies that are wanting to manufacture in India are worried about losing their IP. What's your experience with that?
Well, you know, there is an IP law in India, and I'm not an expert, so I don't want to say anything that I don't know. But no, I know that there's an IP law in India, and we have been organizing multiple sessions on this topic. For our companies, at least, many of these questions are also handled on a central EU level. There are a lot of agreements between countries as well. So in that sense, yes, it is a safe place to do business. You can, of course, protect your brand. And yeah, I mean, that's really generally the kind of information I can give you right now. But I guess, again, if you have any specific queries, you can let us know.
Yeah, exactly. That's also the three Altios and maier+Vidorno and IndiaConnected. All three of us can, and also all four of us can service you there. So it shouldn't be a big issue. I have another question here. Are there initiatives providing financial support for new production setups, at least for the Indian partner in the joint venture? So
depends on
basically subsidies.
Yeah, depends on the sector. There are a lot of subsidies, and there are a lot of new schemes coming up as well. So if you're talking about manufacturing, like I just mentioned, there is this new scheme coming up now called the Production Link Incentive Scheme, where, but that's essentially for local manufacturing, and they've identified about 13 sectors. Of course, in India, we have special economic zones as well, so SEZs. Where if your company is setting up, then of course there are a lot of tax benefits, there are incentives there as well. So I'll need a little more detail on the nature of the company, the product, and the industry to give you a better response. But yes, there are a lot of schemes that do exist.
All right, that's a clear answer. And the India, because he's asking specifically also for the Indian partner, and the Indian partner can probably easier find out than the European partner.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so we have many questions, so I'm trying to browse through them quickly as we go. Someone is asking, let me see, if you don't produce locally in India, it becomes harder and harder to compete with the Make in India scheme. Do you think that this may be becoming a bigger disadvantage for companies that only import in future? So I think
it depends on what product we're talking about. There are a lot of products that are imported today and that are competing with local products that come with a premium. But like I had mentioned, again, I don't know what we're talking about, but supposing it's something which is in the food and beverage, or if it's a consumer good, I think if your product has the potential and if it comes with a certain quality, which I'm positive it does, Indians are ready to pay the difference.
Yeah. But indeed, there is more and more, because I also hear this almost on a daily basis, that people saying it becomes, India says, yeah, they're open for business, but it becomes harder and harder to just export, because there's barriers there.
Yeah.
And that is of course a way to convince companies, okay, just produce in India, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, there's either produce in India, or you collaborate through a partnership. There could be a transfer of technology. Depends on the domain, really. But I do agree that, I mean, we did have a few issues last year where import duties were increased on certain products. And that's been done to protect the local market. But and we did receive a lot of requests in this space, and It's something that we're trying to lower. I mean, if, for example, I just mentioned food and beverage. That is one sector which is highly restricted in India. I mean, the import duties, the customs duties, and then of course the regulations with the IFCCI, where you have to have proper labeling, packaging, etc., etc. It's a sector today where France is completely underrepresented. You think about France, you think about wine and cheese. We don't have enough of it. So that's something which I'm on a mission to kind of, get more of into the country. But yes, I mean, there are sectors where, I mean, there are hurdles to bring in products. But again, we can only hope through dialogue, through policy advocacy, through white papers, through exchanges, that we are able to come to a better situation moving forward.
Yeah, I guess it's hard to make champagne in India, right? So that has to.
There's a French sparkling wine made in India called Chandon, and it's doing very well. And that's another thing. That's another thing. Maybe I should tell you is the entrepreneurial spirit that people have. I mean, we have a lot of even French individuals who come to India to start businesses. The last count we did a couple of years was there are around 200, 250. And they're really successful, bringing in a European expertise, coming and setting a base in India, making a new product or a service, and catering to this huge market. That's also another option.
Yeah. Okay. Let me look at the last round of questions. This is an interesting one. Someone is asking about the safety for women in India. Are there some places to avoid? So this is maybe a nice question to ask to you. How is this for women to do business in India and move around just by themselves?
Well, good question. I mean, see, I live in New Delhi, and I would say the situation has improved. Of course, we've had a couple of years where there have been a lot of incidents, and I'm sure you've read about it in the media, etc., etc. But it is improving. See, women in business, I have nothing to say. This is absolutely, completely, 100% safe. I mean, me myself, I attend a lot of events. I travel in India. We organize events till late at night. Again, there are certain, I would say, cultural aspects or intercultural aspects that you need to be aware of, certain things that you need to keep in mind. But generally speaking, I mean, again, I would not venture out alone in the middle of the night on a deserted street anywhere in the world. So let's forget India. But I mean, the larger cities, I genuinely feel that, yes, there is not really a problem.
There's not a, okay. That's good to hear, because often when we ask this to male colleagues, you get a different answer maybe, or they can't really say. So it's good to hear from you, I guess. Is there a final question? Let me walk through this. We talked about IP. Yeah, that's a similar question on producing locally, or there's many questions about producing locally and producing in Europe. Someone is asking here, we're planning an online event for business-to-business meetings with Indian companies in the sectors energy, technology, mining, environmental, water, tech, chemistry. Do you recommend to focus on a specific region? So I think this is also, can you answer this?
I think, again, the biggest opportunity during COVID has been that there's been no geographical barrier. So earlier, before COVID, at the chamber, we used to organize events per city, per region, and people would have to travel, take a plane. But now, honestly, we have speakers from the Asia Pacific region, we have speakers from Europe. I think that you should do an event with India. Now, depending on the sector, of course, maybe that might have an impact on the kind of state or geography you're trying to target, but keep it open. I think, I don't see really what the problem would be.
Yeah, that's maybe also a more specific question on the differences there are between the various states within India. That's a question we often get, like, yeah, where should I start, or what is the place to go? Can you say something about that, or is there on your website like an overview of the strength of various states? Or
there are many reports. There are many reports on India states, you know, doing business. See, in India there are 29 states. I mean, in each state is different culture, different language, different customs. So it's like it's really. I mean, it's a large country. It's diverse. It's very hard to say, but there's a lot of information out there. And again, we'd be happy to send you reports. I'm sure Altios has something, M+V would have something. We'll definitely be able to help you. And again, depending on what you're looking at. For example, there are certain sectors that are stronger in certain regions. You know, Tamil Nadu in the south is strong in textiles and automotive. Punjab in the north is strong in, you know, also, I guess, automotive a little bit, but also agriculture. So it really depends on what you're looking for.
Okay,
Bangalore, Silicon Valley of India, you know, so tech and IT.
All right, so there's been a lot been written about the strengths of the various regions. So and we can provide that information. I go to a last question because Payal will let you go after that, and we're gonna say a bit more about the rest of the month's program.
Sure.
But someone is asking, how do you cope with when members? How do they cope with outstanding receivables due to COVID that have basically outstanding receivables that have increased due to the pandemic? How do members deal with this? So if I understand it correct, the question is that
I mean, do they mean non-payment of?
That's what I think. Yes.
See, I'm not sure if this is the question, but if the person is trying to ask, so again, a lot of questions we receive as well at the chamber is a company that's sitting in Europe that's placed an order in India. They've placed the order, they've paid, they've not received the goods. Are we talking about litigations? I'm really not sure what the question really means, but in any case, once again, we have a lot of partners here to help you.
Yes, because I think that is the question is that if money is not received, basically.
Yeah, so arbitration, yes, I mean that's something a lot of partners do in India, and we can help you recover. It's basically payment recovery. We can help you recover your dues.
Thank you, Payal. Thanks for